Sunday. It is Rosella Ide-White, your Love Big Coach, and I am coming to you from the East Coast. I came out to the DC area to spend some time with my best friend, and it's been a wonderful week already, and I'll be here at least for another week. But I'm so excited to be with you today, and I'm going to be sharing something with you that is something that I have remembered, if you will, right? Something that has been a part of my psyche, that has been a part of my knowledge base, but I have been reintroduced to it and I am exploring it in ways that I think might have some pretty significant outcomes. So this evening at 7:30 Eastern Time, so that's 6:30 Central Time, I will be preaching with my home community of Kindred, which is a dinner church located in Houston, Texas. And we have been exploring over the last month a conversation around mystics and contemplatives, right? As we continue to expand and deepen our faith and as we engage other ways of knowing, other ways of being on this faith walk. And I didn't even realize it when I chose this date, but today I'll be reflecting on the work of the Reverend Dr. Barbara Holmes, who is a Black woman, an African American woman, who is the former president of United Theological Seminary of the Twin Cities and also a professor from Memphis Theological Seminary in Tennessee. And I first encountered Dr. Holmes when I was a student at the Lutheran Theological Seminary at Philadelphia. And she came and spoke during one of our convocations. And I don't think that I had ever experienced a Black woman, theologian, scholar, preacher, who was engaging the work of both the cosmos and contemplation and doing it in a way that was just beautiful and expansive and invitational, right? Because she had a way to invite us into this way of thinking and being that many of us hadn't really explored before. And then when I was taking my African American theology course, one of her books was one of our required readings. So Joy Unspeakable, Contemplative Practices of the Black Church was a book that we had to read and reflect on. And I love this book. I love the work that she is bringing into this world. And to learn from a Black woman scholar who is reclaiming contemplative practices of our past and inviting us to consider our our internal life in a way that has external implications is really powerful and profound. And so, I've been on this journey of exploring ancestral lineage and wisdom and recovering, I think, some ways of being, some spiritual practices that come from my ancestors. And it's been such an impactful journey. I mean, impactful is the word that comes to mind, right? It's been a time of me listening deeply, of me learning, of me finding resonance with particular practices, and really doing the deep work of interrogation, right? And interrogation is a part of this deconstruction and this dismantling and this decolonization that not only is the Love Big Collective about, but that's what I'm about, right? Even in my coaching practice and my consulting work, I'm always inviting people to a journey of decolonizing their thoughts, their beliefs, their behaviors, their values as they create a vision for themselves and for their work that is creative and liberative and sustaining. And so this work of Barbara Holmes, of Dr. Holmes, has been speaking to me today and has been pulling me, right, to explore my own thoughts about contemplation. So I shared a post on social media earlier today that talked about how I never wanted to be a Martin Luther King Jr. or a figure in our history that is like larger than life, right? I even shun when people would call me prophetic, A, because nothing ever turns out too well for prophets, and B, because to be a prophet was to live a life that was very lonely, right? It was to live a life where one might have direct action or connection to the divine, but that one's life is not one's own. And ultimately, prophets don't end up in good spaces. They're martyred, they're killed, or they're wandering in the wilderness like with dreads and eating locusts and honey. And I never wanted to be that, right? But what I did want to be, who I wanted to be and who I fell in love with when I first encountered him, and this would have probably been in like 2000, in the late 90s, early 2000s. I wanted to be a contemplative in the line of Howard Thurman. I wanted to be someone who was pulled to the mystical, right? Someone who spent time deeply rooting. And what I learned about Howard Thurman was that his work and who he was provided the grounding for many of the leaders that came out of the civil rights movement, right? So he created ways of being and thinking and knowing and embodying one's faith, and also expanded the vision of what we understood faith was about and what faith could lead us to. And so, how does this connect to this Self Love Sunday, right? To this endeavor or this enterprise of nurturing love in ourselves, love that is life giving and justice seeking and ultimately transformative? Well, reclaiming a practice of contemplation has led me to interrogate other practices, ways of being, ways of knowing that have been um, that I've been taught were either wrong or negative or bad, right? And in that work of reclamation and recovery, I've been able to reinstate some practices, some belief, and again, ways of being and knowing that flow from ancestral lineage, that flow from history and context and culture. And I'm able to reclaim it in a way that fits beautifully, right, with my beliefs, my faith, and my values. And so, my question for you today is, what is something in your life that you are being called to reclaim? What is some way of being or way of knowing that maybe you never even explored because you were told to do only one thing or be only one way? And now you're recognizing that maybe those who were telling you that were not actually as free or as grounded or as connected as you want to be now, right? And so for me, that has been reclaiming everything that has been taught that I was told was bad, right? So, growing up as a Black woman, there are certain things not only about how I look, but the way I wear my hair, the way that I show up, my embodied reality that has been told it is not of the majority culture. And so when we hear things like Black is beautiful or Black girl magic or Black lives matter, it's a reclamation of something that we were taught was not worthy of honoring, was not worthy of dignity, was not worthy of life and of liberation. And so, as I'm doing the work of reclaiming my contemplative practice, um, I am also recognizing that there is so much more to discover. And that is exciting. I mean, the smile comes through because I'm excited to continue to dive in and to dig deep and to imagine. And so I leave you with a couple of quotes from Dr. Holmes from her book, Joy Unspeakable, um, quotes that have really impacted me. And so the first is, contemplation is a spiritual practice that has the potential to heal, instruct, and connect us to the source of our being. Crisis contemplation, and this is what she talked about as emerging from slavery. Crisis contemplation provided a refuge, a wellspring of discernment in a suddenly disordered life space, and a geospiritual anvil for forging a new identity. In the face of current dilemmas, we continue to hurtle toward the phantom goal of integration, a goal that was never an option in the first place. To be certain, the desire to prove self-worth and wipe out a history of oppression in one generation has taken its spiritual toll. The weariness I encounter is so pervasive and so deep that it cannot be assuaged by the usual liturgy and shout. Something more is needed in the spiritual lives of people. I am proposing that this something must include a healing reclamation of a unique, I can't even read my own writing. Of a unique centering contemplation heritage, one that has communal rituals and practices, right? And the other thing that I would just say about this particular piece is that contemplation from the Black experience, from the Africana reality, was always something that was communal and was embodied. It was never something that was for the individual and just steeped in silence and solitude. And so that is what I'm exploring this week. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being a member of the Love Big Collective. I will be sharing more wisdom and insights on my social media platforms in the coming weeks, along with a new initiative, my racial healing and wellness coaching program, that will have two angles of vision, one for white women and one for Black women and Black Indigenous women of color. And so I'm excited to share that information with you and can't wait for what's next. Have a blessed day.